there's more. Oh, my friends, there is more. But do I dare? Of course. What else could it be? Well, I guess we're not done here. Not yet. It feels like every 2 years, the same old thing. We come so close only to be told it's just out of our reach. We just have to wait a little bit longer. But can Tomorrowland truly afford to wait just a little bit longer? Can the PeopleMover afford to wait just a little bit longer? 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go to the D23 Expo in Anaheim, California, and attend all 3 nights of the Honda Center shows. And let me tell you, all 3 of these presentations were amazing. Entertainment, parks, and legends. They were all a fantastic time. But of course, we're focusing on that second one, the parks presentation. When they started talking about the Disneyland 70th anniversary, everybody in the theater collectively leaned forward in their seats. Me most of all. Because maybe, just maybe, somewhere deep down there in the recesses of Walt Disney Imagineering, they had been working on a plan for Tomorrowland at Disneyland, and this would be the time for them to announce that changes would be on the way for the land. They didn't even have to say anything specific, just any mention that work on Tomorrowland is being done, and that we can expect to see results that fans of the land, both longtime and new, would both appreciate. This was their moment. And the more the 70th anniversary of Disneyland was spoken about, the further forward I sat in my seat. I sat further and further forward until I thought, maybe they'll close with Tomorrowland when talking about Disneyland, because it'll be such a huge, momentous occasion. It's an easy win. It's a layup. Everyone will be on their feet screaming, me most of all. Obviously, they're going to close with it. And then, as I leaned even further in my seat, they moved on. They changed topics. They moved on, talking about different projects, like the retheming of Dino Land into the tropical Americas, more cruise ships, a lot of cruise ships, which, was all fine, and obviously you gotta end the show on something big, so maybe they're saving it for the very, very end of the presentation. That's what I thought.
Yet you have neglected one promise, one made by you, just tomorrow.
Is that right? What would that be?
A land twisted and broken.
Look, I'm not going to discuss that place tonight.
Now refusing to reveal this dark new creation leaves us with no choice but to offer persuasion.
We love our Disney villains, right? We love them. Their evil ambition gives us endless possibilities to tell brand new stories. Which is why I'm so excited to announce we are building a villain's land at the Magic Kingdom.
Where's the PeopleMover? Is that land going to have a PeopleMover? I think we should heavily consider including a PeopleMover in the villains area. They closed the show with villains, which, I honestly gotta admit, it looks really, really cool. I never actually doubted that this land would be awesome. Okay, this just looks great. But this was a big announcement, and it was the end of the show. We walked out after that. It was over. It had a lot of highs, a couple of lows, but for the most part, it was amazing. Amazing, yes, but a 9 out of 10 could always be a 10 out of 10. Now let's talk very quickly about why Tomorrowland didn't get a mention at D23 and why people moving specifically wasn't brought up at all. Because something that I thought was very interesting during this presentation is that they kept making jokes referring to the broken Yeti over at Expedition Everest that they can't really fix in a similar way to the People Mover. For those of you who don't know, Expedition Everest is sort of comprised of 3 separate structures. You have the mountain structure itself, the roller coaster structure within the mountain, and a structure just for the Yeti. And in order to fix that Yeti structure, the other 2 would either have to be completely replaced or stripped away altogether. And obviously you cannot replace the roller coaster in a roller coaster attraction, and removing the mountain would sort of be unwise. So I don't foresee them fixing the Yeti anytime soon, simply because it's nearly impossible to fix the Yeti. And they talked about this multiple times during the presentation. Deadpool himself took to the stage to tell Josh D'Amaro to fix the Yeti.
What's up, Deadpool?
What? I'm not. What's a Deadpool? I'm just an average Disney Parks fan. Dole Whip, rope drop, thank the Venetians. Por favor, mantengas alejado de los cuerpos. No? Fine. How did you see through my disguise?
It's kind of a gift that I have.
Okay, look here, Joshua. I know you've already said no 100 times. And I don't mean to sound like a broken Yeti, but I thought I'd take this one last chance to pitch my ideas for new stuff in the parks.
I mean, come on, why does the Yeti get all the love? Although Deadpool did talk about Deadpool's Heck House and... What is that I see down there in the bottom left corner? Deadpool, we do not talk about that. We do not mourn the loss of that. We need to move on in the video. Now, let's all think for a moment. What other attraction at a Disney park would require a full teardown or a complete overhaul in order to fix? Really racking our brains for this. Oh, that's right, the Disneyland People Mover. How could I have forgotten? That's all I talk about. And while there was constant talk about fixing the Yeti, there wasn't a single utterance of the word people or mover during this entire presentation. And that has me confused and maybe even a bit worried, a bit scared. What is this, a contest now? Are we in a Fix the Disney Parks contest and it's the People Movers versus the Yetis? People Movers are gonna win, by the way. I just find it odd that they talked about fixing the Yeti so often during this presentation, but not a word was said on the People Mover. Does that mean that we might see something in the future because they went out of their way not to mention Tomorrowland or a People Mover? Probably not. It's all up in the air right now. Everything is so far up in the air, I don't know what to believe that. But that doesn't mean that there's not rumors circulating. That doesn't mean that there's ever a rumor circulating above our heads up there somewhere, because there is a rumor about Tomorrowland, specifically at Disneyland, and it has me a little bit... I don't want to say it. I'm not going to say hopeful because I don't want to say that I'm hopeful, because last time I was hopeful, I got beyond Big Thunder Mountain. Unfortunately, we don't know any of the specifics at this time, but a fellow YouTuber who has reported on different rumors in the past that ended up being correct, especially ones that sort of were taken out of left field that we all thought there's no way they could be real, and then they turned out to be real, told me, specifically me, look at that, I'm the Tomorrowland People Mover guy, that there are whisperings deep in that Burbank building about some sort of change to Tomorrowland at Disneyland. We don't know what, we don't know when, we certainly know why, I mean, come on. But as rumor would have it, something is in the works. We already know that the Autopia is meant to go all electric by the year 2026, which is in just under 2 years, my friends. By the way, may I remind you, will they be announcing or changing other parts of Tomorrowland in conjunction with this update? They could if they wanted to. But the reason I opened up this box, the reason that I opened up my box of hopes and dreams, etc. for you today, was to say that it might be time for us to move on, to abandon our dreams of a new Tomorrowland, of a reopened People Mover, because I think it's not worth getting that box opened every 2 years for D23, and even almost every year for Destination D23, because when, or if at this point Disney decides to announce a new Tomorrowland for Disneyland, we'll know when they want us to know and not a second sooner. I think it really sucks, but at this point I am just sort of resigning myself to being pleasantly surprised if they do announce a new Tomorrowland or a People Mover at any point in the future. I'm not expecting them to, though. I can see the headlines now. Offhand, Disney finally resigns after years of being beaten down by the expectations of a new people mover at Disneyland. He's finally had enough, and I guess that's true. But as a second part to the rumor, I also gleaned from a fellow YouTuber friend while waiting in line for a merchandise shop that if they were to redo Tomorrowland, if Disney were to go through with this construction project, it would involve tearing the entire land down to the studs, minus, I'm assuming, Star Tours and Space Mountain. And since they're rejuvenating the Autopia relatively soon, I could see that staying, and you can't get rid of the Autopia without getting rid of the subs, so those would also be staying, but everything else I think is definitely up in the air. It'll mainly be that sort of thoroughfare through Tomorrowland that includes Star Tours and Buzz and the empty People Mover track all the way back to Space Mountain and the Star Wars launch bay. That whole area would be receiving the facelift of all facelifts, and that I think is the best way to go about it, because in order to reopen the People Mover or bring back the People Mover, you can't really use the one that they have sitting there now. It is very out of date and in a state of disrepair. They'd have to take these tracks down. You could not just put a People Mover car on these tracks and expect it to run perfectly. They're going to have to do something completely different. So, tear down the land. Leaving, of course, the icon, though. You can't have a Tomorrowland without Space Mountain. Space Mountain gets to stay. But I'm going to back up what I said a couple videos ago about the People Mover and Tomorrowland and Disneyland Forward. I said that they maybe wanted to get Tomorrowland out of the way before starting Disneyland Forward. That was another rumor. I think now, with Disneyland Forward being approved and Avatar being talked about and the Coco attraction being talked about at D23, that Tomorrowland is now on the back burner. And I understand why. It still gets massive amounts of crowds. During Rope Drop, half of that crowd is going towards Space Mountain. I don't blame them. It's a great ride. The other half is going toward Indy. Also a great ride. Me personally, I'm running toward the Mark Twain or the Haunted Mansion, but that's just me. That's just a man with taste. And if you're looking for a time frame as to when we could expect potentially a new Tomorrowland announcement or just talking about a People Mover, don't worry, that's what I do. Now, let's assume for a moment that Disney is saving discussion of a new Tomorrowland until after the Avatar expansion is done and until after the Coco Dark Ride is done. Now, the Coco Dark Ride is meant to break ground in 2026. They're going to start building it in 2 years. And no date was given for the Avatar expansion, the Avatar land, the Avatar experience. They're really hesitating to call this a land, so it might be smaller in scale, just with, bigger e-ticket attractions, so maybe not a full-sized Galaxy's Edge style land, but a bit smaller. That is me getting off track, though. So if Coco were to break ground in 2026, let's say it opens 2027, 2028. If Coco's from the ground up, I'm going to give it 2 years to be constructed. Tiana's took 16 months at the Magic Kingdom, and that was an overlay, so a bit more time than Tiana's, I would say, if they're building it from the ground up. And then after that, they're going to start Avatar, give that 3 to 4 years, and then, after that, maybe we'll get some sort of talk about Tomorrowland. So that's 2029, 2030 at the earliest. I'm expecting some sort of chatter about Tomorrowland. It seems like the focus for the Disneyland 70th anniversary was on the Walt Disney animatronic. They talked about that a lot. Maybe we'll get a new fireworks show, something small. I don't think Disney has any plans for Tomorrowland in the immediate future, but maybe for Disneyland's 80th celebration, 10 years from now, we could hear some whisperings again. Anything at all. But I mean, think about it. Disneyland 80th celebration. 80 rhymes with Hades. Hades, a character in the Disney movie Hercules, which also features a Lion King Easter egg. They're opening a Lion King log flume at Disneyland Paris. What else is a log flume? That's right, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Tiana's Bayou Adventure replaced Splash Mountain in a similar vein that the Rocket Rods replaced what? The People Mover. That's right. So maybe even just calling it the Disneyland 80th celebration is a reference, is a hint that Disney is dropping for us, the People Mover fans, that they are working on some sort of People Mover. Either that or I'm actually losing it at this point. Actually lost it. I guess what I'm trying to say with this video is that I was kind of expecting something at D23 2022, and I didn't have really high hopes for 2024, but it would have been nice to hear anything. The fact that we didn't hear anything at all implies that any work being done to Tomorrowland, if any, is a long ways out. So I guess I'm just gonna head into my cryo chamber underneath Pirates of the Caribbean, and you can finally wake me up when I'll be able to enjoy beautiful, elevated views of Main Street USA and Tomorrowland and a little bit of Fantasyland sometimes. My YouTube diet will consist solely of Haunted Mansion and Society of Explorers and Adventurers content until that day arrives, my friends. Don't be sad though. That's not the message of this video. Does Tomorrowland need help? Yes, absolutely. But the fact that we are going to have to wait so very long shows that Disney really wants to get this right. They don't want to do a quick turnover of Tomorrowland and open a half-baked People Mover that breaks down every 3 hours. We want a real People Mover. We want a real good Tomorrowland that is going to last for decades, tens of decades, dozens of decades into the future. And maybe, just maybe, in 10, 15 years, we'll get that announcement saying that yes, we do care. And yes, you are going to be able to move as people once again. But until that day, my friends, I have decided to finally rest. The box is open. You've seen what's inside. And now all that's left to do is close it and put it somewhere it will never be found ever again. Well, I guess that's it. I guess we are finally, at long last, done. I guess it wasn't really about the hopes and dreams I had. It's about the friends we made along the way. Now it's time for me to stash this somewhere secret. Look away now. You're not supposed to know. No one's ever gonna find that thing. Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching my three-part series on my complete thoughts for the parks presentation at D23 2024. Man, I had such a good time at D23 this year. People Mover or no, everybody I saw, everybody I met, all the cosplays I saw, all the panels I went to, it was just a wonderful time, and I would not trade a second of that for anything in the world except for maybe a People Mover. It was a great time. If you enjoyed this video, hey, thanks for watching it. If you didn't enjoy this video, I'm sorry. We'll get back to talking about living with the land next week, okay? I know what the people want. The names that you see scrolling on the left side of your screen actually, right now, are the names of my supporters over at patreon.com. Man, it's been a while since I've done an end card. I'm actually kind of loving it. If you want to join their ranks and see your name in the credits for a video at the end of the month and get early access to other Offhand Disney episodes and exclusive access to 2, going to be 3 soon exclusive Patreon videos, head over there, and even just $1 a month will get you access to most of the perks. Again, a massive thank you to all of my supporters over at Patreon. You are the ones who even helped me go to D23 in the first place, so everyone pat yourselves on the back, and it's going to be an exclusive D23 themed video as just a big thank you to all of you. Stay tuned for that over on Patreon, but if you would instead rather follow me for no money, $0 a month, I get that too. Completely understand. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find me over there. I am most active on Twitter, sometimes on TikTok if I can think of short form content. I'm not fantastic at it, but I'm going to certainly start trying here in the months to come. I've got some trips planned, so it's going to be a great time. If you're new around here and you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. And if you're new around here and you want more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you. We hit 300,000 recently, and I promise I'm still working on that 4-hour-long People Mover video. Yes, I'm not joking about that. That's real. That's going to come out at some point in the future. It's 4 hours long. Give me a break. But everybody, that's the end of this end card. Thank you for sticking with me throughout all 3 of these parts. If you watched all 3 parts of this sort of D23 saga, make sure to leave a little code word in the comments down below. People Mover would be too easy, so leave rocket rods down in the comments below if you watched all 3 parts. I will see everybody watching this. I'll see you all next week in next week's video. Goodbye.